Thank you. I'm Dr. Mike Smith for the Greatest Business Stories in St. Louis podcast. And today I'm interviewing Sheila Buswell. And Sheila, tell us about your business.
So our business is developing the upward mobility. It's a device that allows patients in rehabilitation hospitals to conduct the activities of daily living, like toileting, independently. The current state of care is you have to have a healthcare worker, an entourage of healthcare workers accompany you for all the activities of daily living, like toileting. And our device will allow people to conduct these activities independently and safely, making the healthcare workers safer as a result, because a lot of healthcare workers get injured helping patients, and patients lose independence and dignity. And because of the lack of safety, people fall, healthcare workers get injured. There's a lot of medical lawsuits, $180 billion filed annually. So upward
Wow.
mobility is a solution to all those problems.
So your mobility helps. So we see a lot of aging people in today's society, and a lot of those are choosing to be living independently and still in their homes. So this is a technology that helps them in their homes, but it also aids the health worker, right? Or can they use them independently?
Well, they can't. The way this is going to, the upward mobility works is sensors embedded in a harness and uses artificial
Okay,
intelligence as a control system, right? Because
gotcha.
we don't know a lot about mobility, like people standing up and sitting down, for
Right,
instance. There's
right.
a lot of information on walking. But this device is huge. I mean, healthcare, the door frames in rehabilitation hospitals or hospitals nationwide or across the board, and nursing homes too, they're 42 inches wide. My
Okay,
house in the city, the door frames, some of them were 28 inches. So
okay.
this device, as we learn more about how people move, we can figure out how to help people where they live. But right now, this device is for use in hospitals, rehabilitation hospitals
Gotcha.
specifically.
Gotcha. So I get a little bit ahead of myself, but we can see where you're going next. Okay, good. How long have you been in business?
So I quit my full-time job in April of 2019.
Hmm.
Um, but Buswell Biomedical has been around well, initially we were formed in April 19th of 2019.
Okay.
But basically, I had been doing this as my full-time gig for 5 years.
Okay. Full-time gig for 5 years and your passion and dream, before that, obviously, and some time starting up. So, as you've looked through the last 5 years, obviously, you lived through the COVID period, et cetera. Tell us a bit about how your business has changed over the last 5 years.
COVID was really, I mean, I'm sure it was difficult on everybody, but specifically what affected us was a lot of the parts we initially designed with, all those companies went under and we couldn't get them.
Oh,
So
wow.
we redesigned the upward mobility like a few times just because of parts changing. For instance, the gearbox we
Mhm.
initially picked out wasn't available. So we ended up with several iterations, three redesigns based off of that.
So
And
go.
aluminum, the metals market went insane. Aluminum increased 250% overnight. Like the inflation overall across the board was like 12% for aluminum over on average from 2022 to 2023, it was 52%.
Wow. Interesting. So COVID basically changed your supply chain, right? And supply chain, it also called design chain because you had a design chain of different factors that put these parts together to create, your biomedical equipment. So you had to do a restart on that a few times because based on the solvency of those companies. And then secondly, with the commodities and supply chain, it raised your price significantly. So pretty big challenges to overcome, and you guys are still here, getting through it and working through it. So today, what are most of your customers? Where are they at or who are they as you look across your business?
Well, right now we have a FDA regulated device. It needs
Okay.
the FDA clearance. So we're not
Okay.
selling anything. We don't have any
Okay.
customers.
Gotcha.
We're
Okay.
looking for investment. But we want to use rehabilitation hospitals, and there's hospital purchasing groups that
Okay.
hospitals band together to purchase stuff. And from these
Right.
hospital purchasing groups, there's seven nationwide and one in St. Louis. So we're really hoping to make a dent there.
So when we look out across, different medical facilities, we see at least in my opinion, or everything that I hear in the news, there's a shortage of healthcare workers. So as a shortage of healthcare workers, obviously, less hands. So tell me how this device and devices can help with that. There's, a lot of people, you're at the hospital and there's not a lot of people to always help you out. So tell us a little bit more about how that device can be handy and help with help keep some of the good people at work who are supposed to be there helping us.
So the way this device will work is right now when you hit a button, it calls a healthcare worker, but they make
Hmm.
it part of their, like, they have stuff to do when
Right.
they get to you and they
Hmm.
triage everything.
Right.
So if you have to go to the bathroom, most people fall in the rehabilitation hospitals between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. because there's not
Oh,
enough
wow.
people and there's a shift change at that time. And there's a lot of things that happen. Like people go to bed early and that's when they have to go. And I mean, it's frustrating for OSHA has a standard of like 50 pounds to lift.
Hmm.
But if you're expected to catch somebody,
Hmm.
it's more than a person is more than 50 pounds generally. So
Right.
the average person takes several healthcare workers. And as you mentioned, there's a shortage. There's just not several healthcare workers that all have
Right.
time. And so
Right.
this would allow people to conduct these activities of daily living just themselves, right? Like, let's just say you
Hmm.
want to go to the bathroom. You don't have to have an entourage. You can just take
Hmm.
yourself to the bathroom and be safe. And those healthcare workers can do what they were trained to do, what their priority is at that moment,
Hmm.
knowing you're safe in your location at all times.
Right. So tell us a little bit about what you've done to stay confident and keep that passion, burning. 5 years you've had some things to overcome, and you've been this road longer than 5 years, but 5 years full time. Tell us what keeps that passion burning, and you're getting ready to get FDA, you're going to try to go through FDA approvals, and you're trying to get to the next step to finally go to market. So tell us what motivates you and keeps you going.
So, Mike, I'm gonna just tell you honestly, when I entered the Army in 1997, I got deployed to Bosnia in 1998, where I was
Okay.
injured. A generator
Okay.
crushed my foot, and I saw a lot of things firsthand. 20 years later, my mom falls in an accident and breaks her hip, and she's in a
Okay.
rehabilitation hospital. But by this time, I have a master's in engineering, and I'd worked for a lot of great companies. Here locally, I worked for Anheuser-Busch, right? Like, so you
Right.
automate stuff.
Hmm.
And I I sat watching my little mom, have to go to the bathroom or conduct any of the activities of daily living, but specifically going to the bathroom. And sometimes the healthcare worker's a man. And she, did that fine. My mom's a tiny little woman,
Hmm.
but she still needs somebody. And they were short staffed. So I saw my mom wait.
Hmm.
And that's what keeps me going. I know that I researched that problem and I was like, oh, it's not just in Prescott, Arizona that they have that issue. It's nationwide. And I
Hmm.
was frustrated that the lack of technology or nothing had changed in the rehabilitation center. 20 years ago in Bosnia when I was injured, I had UN nurses, a whole staff of them to take
Hmm.
me for any of the activities of daily living, but it was still hard and it's still humbling. But when I saw my mom in this situation in 2018 waiting, it bothered me. So
Okay.
every day that lights a fire under me. Like I think about how painful it was to see my little mama that I love
Hmm.
go through a problem and it hadn't gotten any better in 20 years. So I wasn't planning to ever start a business or do any of that. Like I had this perception of security and I had a master's in engineering. And like I said, I worked for a lot of great companies.
Hmm.
But I was like, if not me, then who? So my first plan was to just go work for who's ever developing. Everyone's developing a self-driving car. I could find a lot of opportunities where artificial intelligence is used to help situations, right, where they're
Right.
shorthanded.
Hmm.
But nobody was working on this. And I was like, why isn't anybody working on it? And then I got a patent and filed for a patent and built a business around Buswell Biomedical around the upward mobility to develop this and to solve a problem. And since I know that that's a systemic problem, and I know that's a problem that everybody will be touched by, either firsthand or they're watching somebody they love in that situation, it motivates me every day. Like I have discipline, but when motivation's not there, the discipline has to take over. But when I really think about it, I'm like, and the people on my team, 4 people, right? They
Mhm.
believe in this product too, so that it's there when they need it or when the person they love needs it next.
Gotcha. So you had a problem that you experienced personally with your mom. You saw 20 years of change in your as they call it in the E-Myth, your entrepreneurial seizure was I can go solve something. So you took action and went forward. That is a great. Um, so what's the most memorable hurdle that you've had to overcome in your time in the business?
I think my comfort zone is now a dot to me, but I didn't like any of the things where you have to go pitch your business. You have to go. I'm an engineer. Stereotypically, I just didn't like to talk to people. Like as an engineer, I wanted to stay in my cube and work on my problem, right? But
Mhm.
I'm the face of the company, and that was for me a big hurdle. Like to get in a position where all of a sudden I have to advocate, nobody else will. I have to do all the things, not engineering. And that was a brutal lesson. I had dedicated my life previously to engineering. To know that
Hmm.
that's not the most important thing in a business was a
Hmm.
really hard lesson to learn and a difficult hurdle, honestly. It was an internal hurdle, but it was a hurdle. As a coach, you probably know those internal hurdles can be huge.
Yeah. Internal hurdles are sometimes bigger than the external hurdles. So, those do
Yeah,
happen. Um, so as you go out and you look at how busy you are, over the past 5 years and the ins and the outs. So tell me, how do you balance your personal and business lives and keep those in different lanes?
I have to say that was a learning curve that I had to make.
Okay.
And there was a time when I was working 7 days a week, 16-hour days.
Hmm.
And like you said, it was my passion, right? So it's not
Hmm.
as easy to shut off. And although I was giving a lot of myself, it wasn't the best of myself. And it was my husband who pointed out, that's not a good idea. That's not maintainable.
Hmm.
So figure out how to throttle it back. And it took a while. And it took, like, even I got pneumonia last year. I'm sure a lot of that was simply I was, burnt out on physically and everything. But it was like I didn't know how to take it easy. But now I put strict boundaries and working conditions and working hours. And I think that helps, makes me better, more well-rounded.
How long have you been doing that? That you've put the structure around it?
Well, for the last year, I've had pretty solid boundaries on like, okay,
Gotcha.
I
Gotcha.
work from nine
Good.
to five and I do all the other
Okay.
things. But
Mm.
I think I've added those over 5 years. I think it's
Okay.
been adding, making sure I sleep well and exercise and eat well.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
those are hard things to do to make sure you do every day. And you don't realize how important they are until you don't do them. I don't know
Right.
if that
It's
makes
not,
sense.
yeah, it's not the number of hours you worked, it's the how active you are during those hours. Exactly. Great. So you've been in business now for 5 years. And so where's your business headed for the next 3 to 5 years?
So after we get the FDA approval, I
Mhm.
would it I do not want to be a manufacturer of goods, right? Like I want to go back to being an engineer and just be the CTO. We hope in the next 3 to 5 years to just sell the intellectual property in Buswell Biomedical. I'll move on to
Mhm.
something else.
Mhm. Great. Or maybe become an incubator for technologies, right? Maybe you just sell the product line or license the product line, right? That's a good idea. Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe.
and I would love to see more companies come to this area, right? St.
Hmm.
Louis is n- got a great ecosystem, but it's just not there's not a lot of technological companies like that come from here, like the Bay Area or New York City, which
Right.
just isn't.
Right. So as much as we try, we keep having to fall a little short on that. I think a lot of it has to do with the capital that's here, being able to go and fund those, right?
Yeah,
So,
money just means a different thing.
so what's one piece of advice you'd give those aspiring business owners who are listening to this podcast? What's one piece of advice you'd give them reflecting back in your your rearview mirror and looking forward in your windshield? What's the piece of advice you'd give them?
It sounds overly simplistic, but just keep moving. Like Rocky Balboa has a
Hmm.
thing where he's talking to Apollo Creed and he's talking about it's not how hard you punch, it's how,
Hmm.
life punches really hard. You just have to
Hmm.
take punches and keep moving forward. And I think that's the secret to a lot of things. Just keep moving no matter what happens. Just figure out how to keep it moving.
Right.
And that is easily said. It's really hard to do because there's times where I just want to not get out of bed. right? But
Right.
there's,
Right.
okay, aluminum is 400% inflated today. Well, you
Right.
can't get it. How
Right.
are we going to solve that problem? Not, I don't want to face that problem, but
Huh?
to just move ahead.
Right. That's great. Move ahead. I like that. So I'm going to ask you one more for your wisdom. So if you could magically improve one area of your business tomorrow, what would it be?
Ooh, we are a startup and it's really, we're really scrappy. Um, I would like to have more money. I would like to have more investors, but you have
Mhm.
to talk to investors to and like educate them. And I
Mhm.
am, as much as I am trying, working on that and like every day advocating, I see that I would love to be able to have more money and to be able to communicate better.
Right. So what's the one thing that you do that you feel helps you keep balance with charities or to give back to communities? What's a couple things that you do out there to you can share with others?
I was in the military and I'm a huge proponent of just being available and doing things for the veteran community. Right now, we
Gotcha.
have I mean, I'm sure that reaches everybody, but
Mhm.
veteran suicide is like crazy high. And I
Yeah.
think that those reasons exist for everybody who commits suicide, right? Like
Right.
that whole component. And I think just like if we learn more about motion, we can make the upward mobility, or we can bring mobility devices that can keep people safe in their homes. I think if we learn about veteran suicide, we'll understand better about the suicide attempts or suicide successes in other communities as a whole.
Thank you. And I forget to thank you for serving our country. I greatly appreciate that. I forgot to tell you that up front. So thank you for being a veteran and thank you for also, surviving through the injury that you had while deployed. So we greatly appreciate that as Americans and appreciate your patriotism. So I'm gonna put you on the spot for a minute and embarrass you because you probably know that I looked this up, but I saw that you wrote a book. So I know you probably didn't want me to bring that up, but I was hoping that you might be able to just share the name of it and we'll put a link with the podcast because I think a lot of what you said today, there's probably some great pieces in that book that we can share with others. So can you share that book with us a little bit?
The book this is the book if you are watching as well as listening, and it's
Yeah.
called Is This Seat for Me? And it's about imposter syndrome.
Okay.
And it's one of those things because of my time in the military, I don't have the traditional imposter syndrome, right? Like I was very firmly rooted in, oh, I'm an engineer and I'm awesome at it. Just ask me any
Right.
technical question you want.
Right.
But I have imposter syndrome in another way. So, and I got other people, I think there's 7 stories, including mine. So 8 stories and 5 personal solutions and 2 cultural solutions about imposter syndrome. And I do talk about the business because of it made me more aware of the societal issues as well as my personal issues and wrote the book because of
It's
that.
great. That takes an effort. Plus how long ago did you write that book?
It was released in 2023.
Okay. So while
I
you're
wrote
while,
the
while
book
you're
long
while you're
before
getting a
that.
startup, you're doing a book, you're okay. You just gotta have extra stuff to do, right? Did
Oh
your
yeah,
life
in all my
balance
spare
help?
time.
Did your life balance help a little bit after you got it published there? I'm sure that made your family a little happier.
Um, it did, and I was like, what did I, how did, what, I didn't know what to do with all the free time at first because all of a sudden, but like there's always something that fills its plate. And that, like, after the book, I got pneumonia and we moved, and all these
Hmm.
things took time. And if I hadn't had that space, that bandwidth
Hmm.
I wouldn't have the ability to just have those things accomplished or done.
Great. So we're gonna wrap up here. And I know I asked you a little bit earlier about, your idea referral, but I think I'm gonna know what it's gonna be around investing. But so I'm in a lot of the networking groups and obviously you've been around with a lot of investing groups, et cetera. So what's an ideal referral partner for you that can help you out to get your patent completed, funding, et cetera? What's your ideal referral partner that we could refer you to?
I would love to talk to anybody who has knowledge or manages a rehabilitation or hospital facility because I want to make sure I solve all the problems, not just the problems I see. And I'm an engineer. I am not a
All right.
caregiver. So there's a lot of holes in that. And
All
the
right.
people I've talked to, the people who manage hospitals and the people
All right.
who are people facing working in hospitals
Mhm.
have very different set of criteria. And I just want to make sure I meet them all. and the product we're developing meets all the answers all the questions it can.
Gotcha. So, user testing on that individual. That's great. I think those are easy listeners that we can find referrals for you on. So tell us how someone can get a hold of you or contact you. Again, wrap up your business. Tell us again what your company does and how we can get a hold of you.
So the book is called Is the Seat for Me? I have www.istheseatforme. And if you enter in your confirmation, I'll have an email and I'll email you back and I won't spam you.
Mhm.
But that's the best way to reach me. And if you enter in your information, you get a free chapter of the audiobook or the ebook. I mean,
Gotcha.
a free chapter of the book, whether you want it audio or
Okay.
ebook.
Gotcha. Very good. All right. Any other questions that you have for me? Thanks again for being on the show, and I greatly appreciate your time, and do appreciate you serving our country, and love the passion that entrepreneurs have when they see a problem and go and they look around, like you said, it's 20 years and no one's made an improvement here yet. And I do think the really interesting piece that you have is AI is the buzzword, but I think AI is very esoteric to a lot of people. But when you say we can use AI to actually help someone's stability, and being able to their mobility and such, I think it's very interesting because now it becomes real. So anything else you want to share with us?
No, Mike, but I really appreciate the work you're doing. I just do want to share that with you. Like, I think the ability to reach people and bring businesses to their full potential in St. Louis is great. That's a great mission.
I really appreciate that. We enjoyed doing that. Action Coach's mission is in you know a community of abundance through business reeducation, and the sooner that we can help educate others and help bring others together and crisscross, etc. But sooner or later, when you do need to help, you know that we're here and we're here to help you. So have a great day and thank you very much.